Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Lynn Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada. In episode 15, we speak with Dr. Lynn Saladino on managing behaviors around fitness and nutrition.
Dr. Lynn, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I know, and we need to stress to the audience, we are not related. We're not married. We just happen to have the same last name.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm actually changing my last name to Saladino too.
Derek,
Derek, you're kind of on the outside right now. Yeah, you're on the outside. It's a whole Saladino thing.
I like it. So, how things going?
Great. Yeah, no, everything's really good. It's exciting. So lots of good stuff coming up. So I'm psyched.
I love it. And listen, it's funny, Derek, if you don't mind me leading off here, but I want you to kind of jump in as soon as I stop talking, which might be never.
I really have no choice.
But, we always say, especially with like golf, we work with a lot of golfers here, and everyone's like, well, golf is 90% mental. And it's not. It's like, obviously you have to have a certain amount of skill set, and we always hear the example, like, driving range hero, golf course zero, meaning like not like you're a zero handicap, but they're amazing on the driving range. And they're like, oh, on the driving range, I'm a zero handicap and I hit it perfectly all the time. And on the course, I'm a mental midget. And it really comes to a point where, I've worked with a lot of athletes. Derek's worked with probably way more athletes on all different levels. And you just get so good at your craft to a certain point. We put so much emphasis into becoming great at either baseball, soccer, hockey, whatever it is. At a certain point, though, it's like, how much better is the skill going to get? And how much more of it do we really need to start putting on this? Because when I'm looking at all athletes now, this is really where they're lacking. It's less of, it's less about this and it's more about this, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I find it so much, even when I work with people on, sticking with their routines, different things like that, it's the piece that helps the other ones work together and actually helps them be successful. Like you said, the techniques are important. Having the right routines, having the right information, the knowledge, but we can really get in our own way if we're not careful. So that's a lot of what I do, is helping people sort of get out of their own way, for lack of a better way of putting it. So yeah.
Derek, how much do you see that in running? I mean, most people I understand the importance of the mental aspect of it, but when someone's sprinting, 100 meters or 100 yards, or people who don't understand the sport would be like, oh, well, that's not really mental. You just run. There's a lot of mental components to that, correct? Have you had to deal with a lot of your athletes who might be exceptional from the physicality standpoint, but mentally, like, there's something that they're just tripped on?
Yeah, I think it's, how it is. They say it's always easier to run from out front. So if you're ahead, some people do really well, but as soon as they're challenged or they get behind, then that's when things go wrong. So I think there's a certain all the people that I know who have sprinted very well have had some degree of attitude to them. Like there's a bit of an arrogance they carry. And I think that's part of it, part of their success. Maybe it's just a symptom of it. But yeah, I think you need to feel like you're above your competition in order for you sometimes to succeed. And I don't know what Lynn has to say about that, but that's what I see a lot. And I was going to obviously ask on the golf side, what about somebody like Tiger Woods? Has a lot changed for him physically? I know he's had some injuries, but is it the mental side that's changed more?
I think, Tiger, it's interesting because recently he's been playing really well. And I was, I'm someone who wants to see him successful because he's brought so much to the golf game. And he's, he took the golf game from being a sport where it was all about khaki pants and tucked in, polos. And, he made it young and he made it aggressive and he made it fun. And they were even saying when he came back, I think viewership was up something like 30% just from one guy. Is there a mental component in there? Absolutely. I just don't know physically what was wrong with him. I hear so many different rumors in the golf community that, his training was lousy and he was running in army boots. And I heard all this ridiculous stuff, which I can't even believe. Like, why would this guy be out there running 5 miles in a pair of army boots because his father, Earl Woods, wanted him to? So, you hear some ridiculous rumors and you're like, well, that could be contributing to it. But the aspect of just when you fall off for whatever reason, injury or, illness or whatever it might be, yeah, it's difficult to get back on. I mean, especially with how competition is nowadays. And if you just have a couple of bad rounds in golf, I mean, you're competing against 125 of the best players in the world. There's no other sport you can really speak about. Not football, 125 of the best athletes in the world. Maybe it's running, Derek. Maybe it's more of what you do. But, I think what he's doing right now by making that comeback and, a couple top 5 finishes and qualifying in the Masters. And now people are starting to say, all right, this might be the old Tiger coming back. So it is fun to watch.
Yeah. Lynn, what do you think about the mental component of maybe him not feeling like he's on top, like, or just not having that arrogance or that edge? Do you think that's affecting him?
I think that it always can affect. And I think a lot of it is where your confidence is. And I think, to speak a little bit to what Don had said, when you're used to winning, it can really, that, like you said, it really pushes you forward. You start to have more evidence that you're going to be able to do well. And then once that starts to get in your head that maybe you're not going to, it can absolutely trip you up, because then the evidence starts to be that you might not do well. So how do you get people to move forward from there? And I have to say, I mean, a lot of what I work with is sort of the less so those high level athletes, and more so even people in the day to day who are trying to just accomplish these goals of getting a really healthy lifestyle, getting things going in that way. And again, they have so much evidence. I always say, we have to look at your evidence and start to build evidence that things could be different, things can change. So I think it works at all levels, actually, for both people who are athletes as well as people who are trying to make success and make change in their life in terms of being fit and being active. So
I think you said it. The everyday person. A lot of times we talk about optimization and we talk about professional athletes and top 125, and that's just not a realistic number. It's not scalable. Like, you're already working with someone who is so exceptional in one area, in one capacity. It could be their mental game. I mean, I see, specific golfers out there that have terrible swings, and they have, and they're just technically, they may not be great, but they just get it done. They can get the ball in the hole quicker and with less shots than anyone else. And because of that, they actually win. That's kind of what I really want to dive into today, Dr. Lynn and Derek, is speaking about the everyday person, and even just our listener, who may not be regular everyday people. They may be working really high intense jobs, or might be high profile, or whatever it might be. But they're battling the very similar issues. It could be weight loss. It could be dedication into fitness or in the gym. And I know, Dr. Lynn, I know it's a broad question, but what are kind of the first things that you're doing? I mean, people come to you because I always use a line, they want it. Meaning, like, people come to me all the time. They're like, I just want it like you do. I want to just get up and want to go in, and I want to do it, and I just can't get myself to do it. I know it's a broad question, but how do you start out working with people? Because this is really what you do, isn't it?
That is exactly what I do. Yeah. And, there's a lot of different levels to it. And it's interesting. And one of the things that I always tell people is I'm typically the last resort. I'm the one that they come in, they're really hesitant. They've tried everything else. And they've been through so many things. And for some reason, things aren't sticking for them, or they can't stick to their plan, so that's usually when I start to see people. Believe it or not, the first thing that I do, I mean, there's multiple things, but the first thing that I always do is run them through an extensive pros and cons list as to whether or not they actually want to make the change right now. Because the assumption is that because they're in my office, that's a given. And it's interesting because I think by really actually diving into the reasons why they might want to stay exactly as they are, it gives us our list of things to problem solve so that then they can move forward. But believe it or not, it's sometimes a surprising exercise even for them. I usually send them home to do that. And when they really come to terms with what's getting them stuck, and when they come to terms with them owning the process that they're going to change it, it actually gets a lot easier, because if not, they're fighting with themselves. It's something that they should do. It's something that, and I tell people, should last about 2 weeks. But if they're not really owning it, it can be really difficult. And then really from there, believe it or not, I can't emphasize enough how difficult this is for people. I find that they really minimize how hard this is. They almost blame themselves that it's something that should just be willpower. And believe it or not, there's so many, it's actually one of the more difficult things that I help people with, because it can be coming from anywhere and it will change and it will move. Sometimes those challenges are just strictly, I need help getting through, dinners with friends. And then sometimes it's much deeper than that. So it's actually quite a complex thing. And I just like people to be a little nice to themselves as to how difficult this can be to stay on track. I mean, I know you guys must work so hard to stay in the shape that you're in, and it requires a lot of time and a lot of consistency. So I try to help them find a program that works for them.
Yeah, it's work, but it's also, I'm also finding, I'm going to take it from another too. I also think that our expectations of what has to be done is really far-fetched. And what drives me a little nuts is people out there, a lot of this, Derek's going to get sick of me talking about it, but these social media phenoms who, are putting up, they might be genetically gifted, or they might have done one thing that just got them into what looks like a great physical shape. And they're always putting up these pictures of themselves where they look great. And it's setting off a wrong impression, because I even know, I know buddies of mine who might, contest prep for a specific shoot, and they'll get 1,000 photos, and then all year long they'll just post those photos, and people think that they're in that type of shape all year long. And I've got no problem. I mean, I'll use photos from my muscle and fitness shoot, and I'll put it up, and yada yada yada. But I think we also need to paint a good example for people that, listen, I struggle with it sometimes. Like, sometimes I crap out and I decide to eat everything, that's in my cabinet, or go to the grocery store for this epic cheat meal or whatever it is. It's just, but it's okay. But we don't have to live this lifestyle of being perfect and training perfectly. It's like, all right, you know what? 10 minutes a day might be enough for you. And, the 80-20 rule, eating 80% good and 20% crappy a week might be good for you. And I think when people start incorporating that, and they start relaxing and letting their hair down a little bit and start looking at a night out, not as a bad thing, that's just me living life. I enjoyed it. It's time for me to get back on it. I think people do a lot better with achieving their goals.
Absolutely. I can't say enough, and it's about getting much, much more realistic about it. And again, when I go after, even if it's that they're, eating poorly or they want to lose weight, I'm usually only going after the parts that they actually don't want in there. I mean, eating a really wonderful meal with friends, or, having a shorter workout because you're going to meet, people after, or whatever it is. All of that is, like you said, that's life. That's some of the most beautiful parts of life. But then there's these other elements where, maybe you get home from work and you're just binging like crazy when you get home, or you're like, mindlessly eating on the couch, like that stuff a lot of times. And I always say, if we can cut out some of that, just the stuff that comes from stress, the stuff that comes from, different kinds of emotional states, or, honestly, just the stuff that doesn't taste that good, we don't even notice. If we cut that stuff out, they're so much closer to their goals, but we're not trying to be perfect 100% of the time. But some people just don't have that, and then they're trying to be that without the resources. So, yeah.
Do you think that some of the people who have those perfect photos and are driven to do that, do you see people on that side where they're trying to do everything perfect all the time, and it's almost an obsession and creates anxiety, and then you have to talk them off the ledge a bit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times eating, any kind of eating concern usually is tied back to anxiety. There is sort of a perfectionistic component to it and then, so a lot of times even overeating or over-exercising, it's all about getting rid of a state of anxiety, most likely. So a lot of times we try to give them different ways that they can manage that. And then again, it's tough because with these people who are getting a lot of attention their whole career can be built on it. So losing that holds, there's a lot of pressure to keep in that shape and to present that way and to have people see them a certain way. And so, we have to pull them back from it as well. It's all about whether they're happy. That's usually what I go back to. And if they're not happy and it's just causing, so much more anxiety, then we've got to look at that as well. That usually runs maybe more a little bit on the eating disorder spectrum. So,
come the weekends, I've found with a lot of people, it's been almost, the struggle has been more the weekends, right?
Yes.
And I always blamed it on, well, I've noticed even with myself, you sleep a little bit later, you might be getting a little bit less calories, and maybe your macros or your fats aren't as high as they normally are, and you're not used to that. So suddenly you're in a deficit and you start craving more food. So that's my thought process. I'm immediately like, wait a second, if we're filling our body with enough healthy foods and if we're satiated, we're not going to be diving in and relaxing. But I've even found it some nights, you have a rough week at work, you get home, you can sleep in, you're comfortable, you're laying on the couch, and you're like, damn, I want some ice cream. And it's like, not that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what is it with the mental aspect of it? Why is it like suddenly, you hear the terminology comfort food? Like, what is that? What's your thought process on that?
One of the things that I find is that people will come in with this concern, and so often I try to assess for any other joy that they have going on in their life. And a lot of times we have, even though there may be some joy in it, most of our life, a lot of the time, can feel like obligations. You've got stuff going on at work. You've got to keep up with, 12 other things. Maybe you've got a family you're taking care of. And food is one of the fastest ways to make yourself feel happy and comfortable. And it actually, from a physiological component, slows your central nervous system down, because, the same reason why you can't run a marathon and eat a pizza at the same time. If you eat a pizza, it slows your entire system down. And so it actually very quickly will do that for you. So there's some physiological components, but it also, I think, gives people this instant sense of comfort, that maybe they didn't have all week. So when they have a little bit more room for it, it's amazing. Our body will take over and try to get us to slow down and calm down. So sometimes even what I will help people to do is to learn how to get things into their routine that do feel really happy or really joyful, but also things that just help them decompress from the week and also separate from even their day from their evening, because nighttime eating is a big thing I see as well, and it's the same reasons. So
yeah, I mean, that's one of the more intelligent things that I've heard when it comes down to describing, everyone says food is a drug, and letting yourself relax and escape. I just came from a restaurant right now, and Derek knows, like, I pack a lot of my own meals, but I had to shoot video with a really good buddy of mine who's a chef. His name's Matt Abdu at Pig Bleecker. Love the food, love the restaurant, but he started bringing out a couple of dishes that I'm like, oh my God, like French fries. And I'm sitting there, and I went to the restaurant full, and I'm sitting there, and the second I saw them, I got hungry. Like, I couldn't even think. I was eating salad when I was there, and we were talking about low FODMAP diet, and we're talking about low foods. And suddenly they just brought out as a joke, like, the Pig Bleecker burger and the French fries. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God. But instantaneously, I was hungry. I was starving, and I could have ripped through the entire thing. Why is that? Like, how is it? Like, I'm fueled. I'm satiated. I feel great. I'm content. I'm not craving anything. I take one look at something, and my brain actually put myself in this. And I want this to eventually lead to, like, artificial sweeteners and sweet things, and I want to get into that. But how is that possible? I just.
Yeah. I mean, it really, it triggers your brain in such a way. It makes you feel good if you eat it. The problem, of course, is the after effects, because then it's very quick fix and then it just goes away. But yeah, I mean, it triggers your brain in such a way that it just makes you happy. So it's tough. I mean, the other thing that Yeah. What do you, in terms of the artificial, or
you hear about, like, stevia and sucralose and saccharin and all these sweeteners that are bad for you, but it's also triggering something in your brain. And I found when I'm prepping for something, and I have to, when I prep, it's I don't know why, extremely easy for me. So, like, I'm going through the holidays. It's 5 weeks through Christmas where I couldn't have an alcoholic beverage, 6 weeks, whatever it was. I'm at the dinner table. They're eating pasta, meatballs, all these things that I love. I'm eating chicken, sweet potato, and broccoli all weighed out. And I was fine with it because it's part of my goal. It's part of my job. And I knew there was an outcome at the end of the road. So I'm able to relate. Like, if I do this, I'm going to be better off my cover. If I don't do this, I'm going to feel like crap on my cover, and I'm not going to look the way I want to look. So right there was like no cravings. But by removing those foods also, I found that my cravings in the beginning, I was getting a little bit of them, and then they eliminated because I had no sugar in my diet. no sweeteners, etc. When we start tricking our body and we start putting that stuff in our body, you really start craving it. It's like a drug. Like if you have more, if you have that one drink, and people are like, once I get 3-4 drinks in me, I was like, it's done. I'm all over. I'll have 15. And it's like, once you start craving it, you start going to that habit, then you want more and more.
It's like Instagram.
It is like Instagram, Derek.
Yeah. Dopamine.
Exactly. Yeah. Serotonin, dopamine. Yeah. It's all, it all plays together. But like you said, the more you have, sometimes the more you want. And, and the other thing, just to address it as well, is that sometimes people are trying to be so 100% perfect about their eating. And a lot of times, just like what you said before, Don, about the 80-20, that's usually what I endorse as well. It's funny because I always have to let them know that the 20 is not optional. And even I'm like, all right, we'll make it 10, 90-10 if you want. But that part is actually not an optional part. It's not, okay, I'm going to try for 100 and then I'm going to feel guilty about whatever's in that 10%. Because if not, you do end up, very often people will end up sort of binging at a certain point if they go too long without having things that make them, that actually are food that they really feel are enjoyable to them. So I mean, I think, as we both are, I mean, we're Italian. I mean, food was always something, there's something so lovely about it, and it brings people together and all. And if a lot of times if things are too strict and you don't feel that at all, you'll just go bananas by the time you hit the weekend or by the time you hit the evening. So a lot of times I actually encourage people to incorporate things that they really, that they really are enjoying very wholeheartedly throughout, rather than trying to even have like a cheat day, because I mean, I can do a lot of damage on one day. So I usually try to have people spread things out. Don't challenge me, because so I try to have them incorporate it a little bit so it doesn't feel all condensed in and then they just feel really yucky, because that never makes anyone feel good.
And when it gets triggered, it's like, I feel like once you trigger it, there's a phenomenal effect. Like my cheats used to be way worse. When I used to go off the deep end 12, 13 years ago, I'd make it to like Saturday afternoon. And like, I remember Saturday afternoons to like Sunday night, I was literally like it was like a different person. And then I wake up Monday and you feel like crap and you get one workout in and you're like, okay. And then by like Wednesday, like shredded like lettuce is what my buddy says. But it's now, it's things started happening to me psychologically. Like I started getting really depressed, and I would sit there, and if I went off the deep end, even recently, because it's going to happen, and I started eating really poorly and just putting things in my body I just didn't like chips, things that I just don't do well with. I feel gross. I almost would feel depressed for the next day or so. And I didn't know if it was because, I went against what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know if it was because of the hormonally what it was doing to my body, because I was putting crap into my body, a chemical response, all of the above. I mean, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, it's something that I'm starting to learn more about. I have to say, I don't have all of my science down when it comes to the connection between the gut and, because a lot of it has to do with how your gut's doing. And, when you're eating a lot of those things, there is sort of a serotonin component within the gut, and then there's sort of a brain connection to it. So absolutely, there is a huge connection between what we're eating, and especially if we're getting enough fats, is so important to brain health, different kinds of things like that. And so, so again, it's something that I'm learning more about, but absolutely. I mean, some of it is just the guilt, some of it's the voice that comes in your head that says, I really shouldn't have done that. And, and we just beat ourselves up to the point where if anyone ever talked to us that way, we wouldn't be friends with them. We're just not even close. They were so mean to ourselves sometimes. So some of it can be that guilt cycle. And then some of it is absolutely a physical component to it as well.
Do you think there is a mental health crisis that we're going through with a lot of people, or is it just where our awareness is more acute now? Because I read this article about a basketball player, I think it was Kevin Love, and he was talking about how he had a panic attack. And is this something that just always happened and we never really talked about it, or is it just an awareness issue now?
I think people are getting a bit more comfortable talking about this stuff. It's becoming, it's more front and center. I know, Mariah Carey's thing just came out that she struggled with bipolar disorder. Different people are coming out and speaking about it in a much more, in a much more public way, which will hopefully get people. My whole goal is always to help people get more of what they need so they can manage it and it doesn't bother them. Not to be able to speak about it can be pretty tough because then they're just dealing with it by themselves and it can get pretty bad. But I think that it's, I don't know that it's necessarily increasing. I can say that I did see kind of an increase. I worked at Tufts Counseling Center for a while and a couple of other counseling centers, and I was seeing increases even while I was there with some of the levels of mental health issues that I was seeing in the counseling center there. I mean, it got really, really much more intense even in the few years that I did that. So I think maybe in the younger population, which of course could have to do somewhat with social media, that could have to do with coping strategies and ability to actually handle things in a way that makes them feel like they are handling it. But I think in general, I think people are just getting more comfortable talking about this stuff and more things are getting written about it. So I actually think that part is wonderful.
I'm curious. You just mentioned the younger population, and I'm seeing a big change. And I know we always, I'm so tired of using the word millennials. These millennials.
Yeah.
They're getting a bad rap. I mean, things have really, I can see that they're a lot different. I can see that work ethic's a lot different. I can see that, we're in this era of social media and a couple of people really hit grand slams out of the gate. And, it's not where I come from. Like I came from a very old school Italian family and, we were in the restaurant business and it's like, all right, you work your way up and I'm cleaning toilets and maintenance and getting yelled at by my grandfather and my dad and my uncle. And it's like, it sounds like something out of a movie, but the reality is that you really learn, one thing that I've always done really well is I've always worked really hard at whatever I did, whether it was playing college baseball or working with Drive or any of the brands I work at. I work hard, and that's been good for me and it's been bad for me because I've always related success with how hard I've worked, not necessarily how smart I've worked in the past. I'm starting to see a little bit of a change now with the youth coming up, and I'm really starting to see it. Scaring me a little bit because I'm seeing, I know it sounds like that we're pivoting off a little bit topics, but we're really not because it kind of all ties in at the end. But this sense of entitlement and, even with working, I've had people who've worked here for me in the past and I've gone to the front desk and had to have a conversation with them more than once. And they're suddenly like, well, they get their ass in the air because I'm suddenly telling them that they can't be on their phone at the front desk. Like, this is your job.
Right.
It's in the rule books. It's in the handbooks. You can't have your phone at the front desk. You shouldn't be chewing gum. Stop it. If you don't like me saying that to you, this isn't the place for you. And then suddenly I'm the asshole. Are you noticing that? Is there any relation between food and the youth coming up now and a lot of the struggles and the battles that they're having? Because I am seeing that society is becoming more obese. I am seeing that kids are sitting in front of their game components more and they're struggling to get outdoors and they're struggling to play sports more. And I feel like we're going to have less and less, professional athletes from the US because everyone's living in front of the PlayStation. So are these intertwined in a way? If you get what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, it was interesting, and I hope this isn't too off topic, but I was just talking to someone yesterday about, like you said, there's more examples of people who are, on Instagram or sometimes these entrepreneurs that are really pushing this very flexible, free kind of lifestyle, which is great. But like you said, there's a lot of work that happens before you get to that point. Or with some, not all, but with some of the influencers online, they had a lot of money to begin with. So it wasn't, maybe that was where they started was with somebody giving them a whole lot of money to start this thing, because a lot of times you don't make any money in the beginning. That's just, with any of our jobs, we don't make money in the beginning. Sure. So I think that it looks like the way it's being sold right now, I think it makes it very much look like you should just hit it rich without working that hard. So I think that sometimes that will come in, but in terms of the food stuff, it's interesting. It depends on, again, it was actually interesting because when I got into this, I wanted to work with kids and obesity, and I decided to actually work with adults because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to make the impact, because the parents are really the ones who can impact how they see their, what the kids see in terms of what they're eating and how hard they do work. And even when you're on vacation, do you get a workout in, so I wanted to work with the adults rather than the kids. And, some of it is, and it was interesting. I see so many kids, they're not kids actually now. I usually get them in their 20s, with them, a lot of moms sort of making deals with them that they're going to pay them to lose weight. And, that is the mentality. And so it comes, I think, from top down in this situation. So, really working with the parents and really helping them to teach their kids what they're going to need in order to stay fit and take care of themselves, and also be able to move up the ranks work-wise. I know that's a little bit off topic.
No, it's not. And Derek, I was just thinking, my whole point, maybe I could have explained it better, but a lot of it comes down to work ethic. Like, 80-20, I said, it doesn't have to be that hard. It's still work. Like, you still have to respect the process. You still have to put time in. You still have to spend time every day breaking a sweat. And maybe if you realize that, you're a kid in school or you're at a work office and they're serving pizzas every day, you have to start meal prepping. And I feel like work ethic with a lot of these younger kids is thrown out the window. And because of that, I don't want to put the time in. Like, I want things handed to me. I want them quick. And I feel like they're all tied in.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, but everything is so instant gratification now. If you post a photo, you can see immediately how many people like it, what's happening. Everything is instant gratification, and anything that's really worth it, in my opinion, is not instant gratification, but they're not training their brains to hold off on getting back what they put in. Everything is, I want to see it tomorrow. And of course we're all, as humans, I think we're a little impatient. That's like and especially if you want to be a successful human, we want things to happen yesterday. But I think that everything now is such immediate gratification, and weight loss is not an immediate gratification kind of thing. Working hard and building a business is not, it does not happen overnight. I don't know. Derek, what do you think of this? I'm sorry I jumped in. I think he addressed you.
No, that's you're the guest.
It's just me cutting him off.
You've got two Saladinos on the line now.
I'll cut you off, Derek. You're done.
I'm on the ropes. It's like a tag team wrestling match. I'm as a parent, I'm trying to deal with, setting expectations and setting standards and going, look, this is how much activity we have to do. And sometimes it's just regulating because we put them in activities and we just have to drive them there, and they're busy. And if anything, with my kids, I have to make sure they don't do too much. On the eating side, I found as the kids got older, I had a little better dialogue with them about what we want them to eat and how it was good for them. And so I don't know, it's a constant battle, and it's something you can't let up on, at least with my kids. Like, you always have to constantly monitor everything, and you can't just assume that it's going to take care of itself. And I say this to my wife all the time, is like, you send them off to school. If you expect the school to take care of it, it's not going to get done. Or if you send them off to practice, like, you can't assume that the coach will get it done. So we have become the gatekeepers of everything. So it's a little stressful, but it seems to be working out. That seems to be what we're doing. I just want to talk about your body composition issues and how it affects your headspace.
Yes. Me personally?
No.
You talking about me personally? Because that's actually a good topic.
It is.
No, listen. Let me ask you a question. Would you consider, and say this freely, Dr. Saladino? I love saying that. Would you consider? Knowing what you know about me, would you consider me having a eating disorder? Seriously.
I don't think I have enough information to assess.
All right, because I've taken specific eating disorder tests just as like a goof, and it comes up that I have a high eating disorder, or whatever the hell that means. So like, they're basically saying that, like, because they're like, see a piece of cake in front of you, you're gonna go eat it. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, are you gonna, like, if you go on a night, you want to have a cocktail, you want to have a dessert, you're gonna have it. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, yeah, I plan that stuff out. And some people label what I do having an eating disorder. I just label it as being disciplined. I don't understand how that works.
You're just a food Nazi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you have hot dogs? What'd you have for lunch there? Hot dogs?
I'm not telling.
Taco Bell?
That's so funny. Yeah, no, again, it goes back to whether or not it's something, I mean, from a very high level, a lot of it goes back to any disorder always goes back to whether or not it's something that is getting in the way of something else. What is the impact on life? And sometimes if people are really, really strict and it causes all these other issues and different things. I mean, typically the disorders are ones that cause other issues. You seem pretty darn happy, Don. So,
no, listen,
it doesn't.
I'll be honest. I mean, the better I eat, the happier I am. I mean, even though that it's my birthday Sunday and I'm going to go over to my parents and I'm going to eat. They're making me spaghetti and meatballs because I haven't had that in a while. I'm going to eat. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to have a good time. And if I keep it confined to that, I'm going to feel like $1 million.
So you're not going to starve. You're not going to starve yourself before that.
No, I'm not going to starve myself before that. I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat normally. I'm going to eat how I normally do. And if I go do that, I'm in great shape. I know if I wasn't to have that cheat, if I wasn't to go do that Sunday, I would wake up Monday feeling better. I would be happier with myself. Even though I'm planning ahead and I know I'm going to do it and I'm excited about it, I just know psychologically I would wake up like when I'm eating beautifully and there's nothing going on, like, yeah, I'm in a better mood. I'm a better person. And so it actually makes me happier.
If you travel and you can't exercise for 4 or 5 days, do you freak out?
Never happens. It never happens. The only time that ever happens with me is if I plan that time off. So like when I go on vacation, I prefer to break a sweat because it makes me feel better. But if I remember last year I went to Montauk and I purposely took off like 4 or 5 days from the gym. And I remember after, I'm eating some pizza, I'm doing some things. After a couple of days, I'm like, all right, like I'm enjoying this, but I don't feel good. Like I don't feel great. And I wasn't abusing it. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't like, I was having a drink or two with my wife. I was enjoying it, but part of me couldn't relax and really enjoy it. I couldn't let my hair down and be like, this is my time off, because I really do. And it might be a problem. I feel good when I exercise. I feel good when I eat right. I like feeling good. When you're used to waking up every day and you have optimal energy levels and you're sleeping well and you feel great and your mood's great. Yeah, when you don't do that and you see the other side of it, then you're like, what the hell do I want to come back to this for? I got buddies of mine who drink. One of my buddies has, I'm not going to mention his name, he's got a big drinking problem. He probably drinks, 7, 8, 9 bottles of wine a week. And it's like suddenly he's, then he takes a couple of days off of drinking and he's suddenly like, all right, like I'm feeling really good right now. I didn't realize it. I thought I was always feeling good. It's like that analogy. Someone gives up something for Lent, like they give up alcohol for Lent. And then 2 weeks in, they're like, oh my God, I feel great. But 2 weeks ago, you were saying that the alcohol didn't affect you and that you felt great. Like, oh, well, I guess I didn't realize what great really meant, what it really felt like. So.
Your friend's an alcoholic.
My friend's a dead on. I'm not going to mention his name. He's a full-blown drunk. And I can't even get him. I can't even get him to stop. I don't even want to ask him to stop drinking because I think it's like acting as a blood thinner. I'm one of those people like, he'll stop drinking and fucking die. Excuse my language. I don't want to jinx him.
Yeah. It's holding him together and killing things.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. And again, it's sort of, I think where a lot of people struggle is again, finding that moderate space. And, again, one of the things that I sort of help people with is finding moderation, which doesn't seem like Don's strong suit. But,
I do know that.
So weird. But it's interesting too, because one of the things that I a lot of times talk to people about is with moderation, people will say, well, I'm just not that kind of person. And no one is actually that kind of person. People really like things to be very black and white because it contains what they need to do. And also one of the things you mentioned, like even just kind of noticing how your body's feeling and different things, people get so disconnected from that because they've been dieting for so long that, it's really whether or not enough hours have gone by before they eat, whether they're hungry, it's that they have no idea what's going on with them in that regard. So a lot of times we talk a lot about that. And then people hate this, but I try to give them exercises also to kind of build up their ability to be in that gray area, to be in moderation, because that will help them if they do need to have a 30-minute workout one day, and it's either that or I'm going to skip it because I can't do the full thing. I want them to feel comfortable enough to jump in and do things that are in smaller quantities. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to either be too hard or too easy, but a lot of times people are like, I'm just not going to do it because I can't. It's this black and white, all or nothing thinking that kind of comes up. So I'll put them like for just as an example, because I think you guys would also feel it's an anxiety thing, but you know, I'll be like, I want you to be on the treadmill for 28 minutes and 30 seconds and then get off. And they're like, I can't do it. like that, like, it's just because it wasn't done. And it's just, and I just love messing with them in that way, but it does help to train you little by little to get more comfortable doing things that doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I don't know if that sort of applies.
No, it's awesome.
I don't think it's not your strong suit, Don.
No. I'm more curious. No. It's been getting. It's been getting easier for me. Where in the past, you know, even now, like I'm not a big drinker, but I remember in the past, you know, if I would go have a drink, it's like, you know, you have 10. Now it's, you know, I can very easily just have a drink. Like that's, when I don't, I choose not to because I just don't feel like it. But if Sunday night's my birthday, we want to have a tequila with my wife, I'll have one. I won't have like 7 of them. You know what I'm saying? That's where things have evolved. Or knowing with my eating, like if I could actually on a Sunday have a taste or have like a bowl of ice cream, not like a freaking gallon of it. Like there's specific things. Are there drills that you give people? Because I know this is a common question. I'm going to ask it, but what, like, people struggle, or when they get into that environment where they know, I'm around that pizza, or I'm not supposed to have it, or I don't want to have it. I really don't want to have it. Like, is there something that you have people do, or is it just like, you know, you control it or you don't control it? Like, are there any mental drills?
You know, so some of it is about, so even just to back up from it a little bit, but some of it is about helping them to form a really nice picture of what they actually want in terms of their lifestyle. Right. And if that includes, again, you know, like having a piece of pizza could be very different if you're, you know, having half a pizza late at night by yourself at home. And it might be very different if you're out with your family and you're enjoying yourself and, you know, everybody's kind of sitting around having a good conversation and that's what's there, rather than, you know, trying to struggle through not having that. So some of it is about defining, and it reduces the guilt too. When you say, you know what, these are the times that I'm actually going to indulge in this, and then these are the times when I'm going to walk away. But the walking away is the tricky part, regardless. And then, you know, actually with some of that, if it doesn't feel like it's a thing that's worth it, or it's about kind of stopping it, a lot of times what I'll have people do is actually, even if you're at a restaurant and people just completely overeat, I hear this all the time. I try to encourage them to actually take breaks, and nobody needs to know what you're doing. Get up, leave the table, take a little walk, change your physical state a little bit. You know, I know we both did some Tony Robbins training, you know, but it's like you change your physical state, and, you know, all of a sudden you can actually think clearly again, because sometimes you'll get halfway through eating something, you're not hungry anymore, you know, but a lot of times you're just in that autopilot mode. So I try to help people get out of autopilot, and that will help them considerably to actually use their logical brain instead of that like emotional state that the food is getting you into, so that they can make a better decision.
So you mean dumping a whole canister of pepper on your food so you don't eat it isn't a good way to go about doing it if you don't want to eat something? Have you ever heard of this?
You know,
have you ever heard of this? This is true.
I have heard of that. Oh, I have seen people. I mean, the amount of times was that on your eating disorder quiz, Don, or?
Might have been. Derek, how do you not find that funny? Laugh. Wait, Derek, is the monitor working? I'm tapping the monitor. Is it working? I just said that. That's supposed to be funny. He's like this.
I'm just like,
Jesus. Yeah. I remember one time I was getting ready for something and someone dropped a piece of birthday cake and someone across the table was like, have a taste. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like, have it. And they were just annoying me. So finally I opened the pepper canister and I just dumped it on. I go, no, I'm not eating it. So it's terrible. I was so angry at the person. I'm like, leave me alone, you ass.
I'm getting more and more info for my diagnosis, Don. I'm telling you.
At the end, it should be like eating disorder. Yeah. No, I'm actually, You said it. This makes me happy. So I'm a happy person doing this. So.
Wouldn't you say though that there's a bit of a placebo effect by choosing this path, like I'm going to eat like this, or I'm going to do this exercise, that somehow that's self-affirming in itself. Like, hey, I'm doing the right thing, and it just kind of feeds itself. Like I feel better because I'm doing this. Do you think that's at play too?
You asking me or her?
Both of you.
I'll let her talk. I talk too much.
You're just a case study here, Don. We're talking around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's one of the things too that I think is really important. I talk to people about closing the gaps. A lot of our guilt comes in when, we keep saying that we want to do something and we feel guilty and we want to do it and we want to do it. And then, so a lot of times, believe it or not, it's funny because I list out people's goals in terms of, okay, I want to feel better walking into a room. I want to, have, like, they list out all this stuff. And typically what I try to get them to see is that if they even work out for, let's say, the next 5 days, they eat pretty clean, they're going to actually reach, usually, maybe they won't get their weight loss in there completely, but they're going to reach like 60% of how they want to feel by the end of it, just by getting themselves back on track. So, because what I do try to address that instant gratification component, because sometimes it's like, well, I'm not going to lose this weight. Probably, for some people it'll take them a year, to really get where they want to go or whatever. So I try to make things a little bit closer, but exactly what you said, Derek, it will make them feel so much better just by having what they want for themselves equal what they're doing. So closing those gaps.
Awesome. Derek, a lot of your athletes, do you ever see that? Any eating disorders? They're training for sport, they're training to be optimal at what they do, but you also hear about professional. Who was the NBA player who they showed his diet and it was nothing but candy. Who was this guy? It was literally, was it Odom? It might've been Lamar Odom a few years back, where they actually did a little piece on what this guy's nutrition was, and he was literally eating Laffy Taffies all day and like Jolly Ranchers, and he had probably the poorest nutrition. That's somewhat of an eating disorder, isn't it? This is working against what he should be doing. There's different levels of eating disorders. This is completely neglecting your body. You're someone who should be performing at a high level, yet you're putting water into the gas tank. How often do you come across that where you're just like, wait a second, this could be, seriously, and I'm not talking about you either. All right, I'm talking about
there's a difference between ignorance and having an eating disorder, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
No, but it's I get ignorance, but on the other hand, it's come on, how do we not know that this stuff?
Well, he just, what he needs to do? He needs to hire a guy to come over and dump pepper on his candy all the time.
That's how I'm going to get you to start eating right, Derek.
The nutritionist for NBA, the pepper guy. Yeah.
All right, that's how we're going to get. All right, so on that note, I'm going to move on. All right.